The Belmont Stakes is the final leg of the American Triple Crown, and it takes place at Saratoga. It's temporary home, and it's over the shorter trip now as well of 1.25 miles. Our American racing expert Peter Fornatale is going to join me to talk about the final leg of the Triple Crown. Peter, it's a fascinating race, and of course we've got what we wanted, this big rematch, haven't we, between sovereignty and journalism, the 1-2 from the Kentucky Derby.
Yes, I'm not going to pretend it wouldn't be even better if Sovereignty hadn't gone in the Preakness and perhaps even gotten the win there, and we were talking about a Triple Crown possibility. But if you don't have a Triple Crown possibility in the Belmont, the next best thing is to get the Derby winner in the gate against the Preakness winner. That's what we have. Very, very exciting scenes here down the block at Saratoga Racecourse on Saturday. Stakes-laden cards, but the next few days, but really, it's all about this main event in terms of the sport.
Let's remind ourselves about what happened on the first Saturday in May, shall we? The Kentucky Derby at Churchill Downs over the 1.25 miles. Remember, the rain came before the event. It was sloppy. Look out for Sovereignty. He wins the race in the blue. Look out for Journalism, who's in different colours than when he ran in the Preakness, in the Eclipse Thoroughbreds colours here. And look out in behind Baeza, who got slightly outpaced when the other two quicker, but stayed on well to get third, Peter, and just missed out on second.
This is a really interesting race to analyze. Unusual conditions, as you see with the mud, but the dynamics in this race and the part before we picked up really, I think, may have told the tale. When you're just watching the stretch run, looks like Sovereignty handles Journalism rather easily. Looks like Baeza is the one coming with all the momentum late. But what you have to remember is in the early part of this race, Journalism, off a less than ideal break and taking a bump, ended up out of position. And he had to make a wide middle move to get into that attacking area we saw as that VT picked up. I believe that that sustained middle move took some of the sting out of his finish and made Sovereignty's win over him look easier than it probably was. As for Baeza, he's been handled now twice by Journalism, once by Sovereignty. Didn't have the easiest go of things either in the early stages of that race. But what really makes him the one that you can make a case for is his progressive profile. He's lightly raced compared to the other two, and he's in the hands of a trainer in John Sheriffs, known for being conservative with his horses. I think it's possible he has more improvement under the hood than either of those other two, and he's a serious player as well. I've been billing this in a lot of my coverage as a heavyweight title fight between Journalism and Sovereignty, but that oversimplifies it. There's really a three-headed monster in this year's Belmont, and Baeza should definitely be considered part of it.
Yeah, he's definitely part of it. We're going to have a look back at the Preakness now, not just looking at the winner here in this dramatic race, obviously Journalism, but look out for the fifth horse as well. This is Heart of Honour, who's been setting a lot to do, obviously. He got outpaced, you'd imagine that when they're quicker, but he runs on well to get fifth here under Safi. But there's that trouble that Journalism found himself in when he eventually got through under Umberto Rispoli. He was so badly hampered that day by goal-oriented. I still can't believe he won this race, Peter.
It was extremely impressive. Now, you can argue it either way. You can say that goal-oriented maybe was trying to hem him in a little bit, but the more I look at this replay and the head-on, there's a world in which you could say Umberto Rispoli tried to go through a hole that wasn't there. It'll be interesting to see if he's looking for any change in tactics, maybe being a little bit more willing to go wide earlier and try to make a clean run rather than getting bottled down on the inside as he was in there. You mentioned Heart of Honor, and Heart of Honor, he's a bit of an interesting item. Now, he looked like one reading of the Preakness is that he was tested for class and did not pass. But when you consider how poorly he broke, how he acted up in the gate, and you listen to Jamie Osborne's quotes about the work they've done with him in the gate since, perhaps if he gets away from there with a bit more alacrity, he'll have an opportunity to sustain that nice-looking run that he made in the stretch. When you just look at sectionals, he was actually running pretty well late on in the piece there. If he cannot spot the field so many lengths, I don't think he can win. I don't think he can run second. Third might be an ask. But hey, in the U.S., we do have a bet called the Superfecta. The idea of putting Heart of Honor fourth in that to the big three, kind of interesting to me. And if somebody stubs their toe, then all of a sudden he's in the frame in an American Classic, which would be quite a feather in the Osborne's cap.
Yeah, it's a big effort, isn't it? I was looking to Safi Osborne. She's done a lot of interviews about it this week, but she was saying, look, she's not expecting to beat the big two, but look, they might get third or fourth or even third, so it's worth a go, definitely. Let's talk about the early pace of the race. Is Rodriguez going to take them along, Bob Baffert's horse? We sadly didn't see him, did we? He was quite a late scratching from the Kentucky Derby, Pete. But this is a class horse. He won the Wood Memorial. We're going to have a look back at this on this occasion. He was behind Journalism, though, when they met in the race that Barnes was favourite for, the San Felipe, earlier in the year at Santa Anita.
Interestingly, in that race, I think they took away his best weapon, his speed, letting Barnes be the one on the lead while they rated him. You see here in the Wood Memorial how well he can do when allowed to use that early speed. He looked like a main contender for the Kentucky Derby. He developed a foot bruise, which ended up keeping out of the first two legs. Based on the impressive piece of morning work he did the other day, the foot bruise is better. And for a second, when it looked like he was the only speed horse, the pace handicapper in me wanted to maybe make a little bit of a case for him to be able to hang on for a piece of this exacta. Subsequently, Crudo has been entered in this spot, and Crudo has enough speed, I think, to prompt him and not allow him to be loose and comfortable and running efficiently on the front end. I think those two are going to make sure that it's an evenly contested pace. I imagine Baeza will be right in behind them. I think he'll make the first move, and then it's going to be fascinating to see which of those big three can find the most. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Heart of Honor maybe being able to come by and pass those tiring speed horses for fourth. It's a really interesting race. I've played it in my mind a lot of different times, and it comes out a different way a lot of the different times because subtle things that happen in terms of the game theory with the jockeys could really change the result in here. One of the potential results is Rodriguez gets loose and surprises. It wouldn't be the first time Bob Baffert upset the party for a Triple Crown race, but I just don't know if he is going to be able to do that with Crudo in the race. I think it's going to set up for one of the big guns.
OK, he's not a big gun, but I think Hill Road's worth a mention. He's a horse who began life in Ireland with Adrian Murray, now with Chad Brown. He won the Peter Pan Stakes, which is a Grade 3 on the dirt at Aqueduct last time out. It was a good, gutsy effort this day. He's a horse who needs a strong pace to run at. He'd be another one looking for a decent pace here. So, look, I can see him closing, but I don't think he's as good a closer as perhaps a Baeza or a Sovereignty.
I think that's a very fair assessment. And he's sort of the bad news for the Heart of Honor fourth case, because this is probably the horse who's supposed to be finishing best and getting that fourth position. Look, I think he might have the quality to win a Grade 1, but I believe he's going to need a really good setup like he got here in the Peter Pan to do that. And I just don't think there's going to be quite enough burn-up pace at this 1.25 miles to bring his particular brand of late speed into play. It's hard to win when you're the fourth best closer, and that's probably what Hill Road is, but it doesn't mean he's not a very nice horse. That was a terrific run in the juvenile. He had a significant setback and is just really getting going again. Very interesting horse for later in the summer, and maybe the horse of all of these horses, the most disappointed that they're not running this race at 1.5 miles.
That's it, isn't it? Traditionally, as you say, it's a 1.5 mile race. Normally, he'll be back at Belmont soon enough, though, won't it? The new Belmont, shiny new Belmont in a couple of seasons' time. OK, now, you've written a really good piece. I've already read it on attheraces.com. It's a runner-by-runner guide for the Belmont Stakes, Peter. I think I know who your selection might be, but I'm going to keep it simple. I still think Sovereignty, he's still the king, and they've got to try and get his crown off him. He won the Derby. I think he's still the one to beat. Who's going to be your selection, though, for the Belmont Stakes at Saratoga?
I'm sticking with Journalism in here. You can read the full case over on that attheraces.com guide. Previews of 3 other Grade 1 races this weekend as well. Make sure you check that out. But the thing that pushes me over the top about Journalism is how he seems to be thriving on his racing, how much he's enjoyed Saratoga, how sound and fit he looks. I just think he is the sharp horse. I liked him before Journalism. I've conjured that trip excuse for why Sovereignty was able to handle him. I'm not going to arm wrestle you if you want to stick with Sovereignty over to my point of view, but I do think Journalism holds the edge. Fascinated to see how the betting develops in this race, because on the math, I feel like something surprising almost has to happen. I'm just not sure what it's going to be.
That's it. Racing's never straightforward. I mean, we know that. Look at the Preakness, for example, there. That was incredible how much trouble journalism found that day. It's all live, of course, right here on Sky Sports Racing on Saturday. Peter will be eagerly awaiting the rematch and throwing Saffie Osborne and Heart of Honour as well into the mix. Will be running on for Jamie Osborne, you would imagine. It's the big one. It's the Belmont Stakes live at Saratoga on Saturday.